I do want to address a few use cases and business challenges just to sort of level set, why would anybody be exploring field service solutions? Why look at Dynamics 365 field service solutions? So some common, use cases, some common origin points and backstories, just to throw out some scenarios. And then to break down the field service solutions, we're grouping things into some main buckets here. So streamlining intake and work order management. So, the really kicking off the process. Where are we fielding, any incidents or cases, or the hey, I have a problem with, or break fix, but also looking at some of the scheduled maintenance and how we get to that work order stage. And from there, we'll break down the work order anatomy, the different moving parts and configuration data, and some of the pieces that play into the structure and the body of a work order in Dynamics 365 field service. We'll then move on to resources and scheduling. So looking at our resources in the system, who we have available to book for these work orders, these on-site engagements of various types, of various categories. So looking at our pool of techs and how we dispatch. So we'll break down what a resource looks like in the system. So the various characteristics and proficiencies and things like that, as well as how functionally in the system, using tools like the schedule board, we can book those resources. We can book particular work orders against the resources that we have available. I do want to display, we won't spend a ton of time in it, but I do want to bring up the Dynamics 365 field service mobile application. Just to tell the story, we need to understand, what a tech's life is going to be like, what they'll be seeing, what they'll be using while on site with customers, and work order details, time entry, and then we'll move to close things out with some more advanced topics. Now, advanced is, I guess, sort of a fluid term when it comes to things like advanced inventory warehousing and billing cycles. That might not be advanced for everybody, but just taking a look at and sort of discussing some of the pieces in the system that address some of the more advanced areas and business processes, and then obviously questions. So I think for the efficiency's sake today in the session, we'll hold questions until the end, but yeah, we'll reserve a little bit of time in the latter part of the session for any questions you might have that come up. So let's jump into use cases. So common themes and things that we hear when we're sitting down in discovery or learning about why people might be exploring field service solutions. We have customers that are on Key to Act, maybe have a back office GP implementation. We have customers that are exploring Dynamics 365 field service. And really, Microsoft's stance here is field service being addressed with Dynamics 365 field service as an application, and this can apply to multiple industries and verticals, whether we're talking manufacturing, agriculture, you name it. This is meant to be more of a horizontal application. So it's configurable and customizable for your business, for your industry. But the common themes between the industries and the people that we get to speak with, disjointed intake process. So, maybe some people are fielding issues and cases via phone, some email. Maybe everything is flowing through just a specific individual, but maybe there are different tools or disparate tools that are being used to catalog and to track and to just keep tabs on, the who's who and what's what of some of these break fix cases and work orders, or some of the scheduled maintenance, and there might be some. I chose the Band-Aid icon intentionally here. We might have Band-Aids in place. It might be a little disrupted here and there. Critical job details. So as a tech, having access to the customer, whether that's the service account, billing account, details therein, primary service types, work order, just the general, the pieces that we're going to take a look at when we look at work orders, having all of that both at a glance and at a detailed level. So equipping our techs and equipping our resources, empowering our resources with the data that they need and the tools skills that they need to perform these jobs with customers on site in the field. Scheduling, it can be a gut check. So just, that's a good and a bad, I would say. So, the good here, hey, you know your team so well, you understand the proficiencies and the skill sets and what they can, the jobs they can tackle and the appropriate scheduling and resource booking because you know your team, and that's awesome. The bad on that is, if we grow our team, when we're thinking about things like scalability, if we have a pool of resources that's hundreds by count, it might be better to have the system work for us. And when I say that, I mean understanding that we do have skills and certifications, these characteristics, roles that these resources can play, as well as time boxes that we're going to be living in for scheduling. Well, hey, we've got mechanisms in the system that will guide us through that process, and that will make that process very streamlined and easy and visual. So instead of relying on gut check and just sort of the internal knowledge, using the baked-in tools with Dynamics 365 Field Service to do some of that work for us, or at least to guide or inform. Scheduled maintenance misfires. So maybe kind of going back to the disjointed intake process, maybe we have a sort of known schedule for some customers, whether those are tier 1, tier 2 customers, specific industries, strategic accounts, things like that. We might be tracking some of their either preventative or scheduled maintenance cycles in an Excel sheet, or we might just sort of bring the gut check back, just kind of know when we're going to have to go service some of their equipment or provide some, inspection services or anything along those lines in more of that preventative, kind of pre-scheduled agreement-based those cycles. So having that in front of you and having access to what those schedules look like and what is entailed in those, those scheduled maintenance cycles is important. Fleet costs. So I earmarked this one here because when it comes down to scheduling our resources, if people are working, their location, their core location is actually from their home and they're being dispatched and going to sites, if they have to go pick up a truck and we're using a company fleet to go on site for, like with equipment, well, when we're taking into account route optimization, where these resources are located, where the sites are located, this can add up. So, just in fuel and road wear and tear alone, just really keying in on that route optimization as a big value add with Dynamics 365 Field Service is pretty huge for cost saving in managing your fleet and just the week to week, quarter to quarter costs that accrue. We can see some wins there. And at the end of the day, no true 360-degree view. And I think this actually probably underpins each of the previous points here. I, as a tech, maybe I don't, or a service manager or a dispatcher, maybe I need to see some of the activities that the sales team or the pre-sales team in locking in that business and getting these work orders generated. I want to see some of that information. I don't want to live in a silo. And Dynamics 365 is all about breaking down those silos and breaking down those walls so you can actually glean and see sales team activity, marketing team activity, service, field service team activity, project team activity. So it's not relegated to just your space and away you go. We actually have that complete top down, not just the 30,000, but the 10,000, 5,000, and so on and so forth, the visibility that we have into each of these layers. So let's jump into the system itself and what it has in the toolbox to address some of these key areas. So when it comes to work orders, and by work order, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty universal term, but a work order being an instance of on-site service. So somehow, some way, in some shape or form, we need to schedule resources to go on-site with our customers to perform a certain service. Maybe that incorporates some equipment that they bring. Maybe that incorporates rolling stock. Maybe that incorporates, some either leased or purchased equipment. But the work order is that instance of the service, and we need to track that. We need to schedule that. We need to manage that. We need to see it through until it's complete. So within Dynamics 365 Field Service, we have this built-in case to work order process, and case is really that call into your team or that email into your team saying, I have an issue, or I'd like to request XYZ service or inspection or you name it. So we've got this native process to be able to spin up work orders and with ease, to have default data step in, some automation baked in. So we'll take a look at that. I do want to break down the work order itself. So just calling out some of the particulars, and this kind of goes into the next bullet of related information and configuration. So just breaking down the different pieces, the components of that work order, what they mean at a medium high level, but we'll take a look at what this looks and feels like within the application, within the system. And then I do want to focus on, I've brought up preventative or really scheduled maintenance. So we'll take a look at that process and the ins and outs of these agreements that we have, these contracted service, and we can set up those cycles with the customers that we have here. So let me break away from our PowerPoint and I will go into Dynamics 365 here. So this is just my default dashboard that's in the system. It's a supplier analysis. This is an embedded Power BI dashboard here. I have a number of different dashboards available to me in the system, but right now I'm in the field service application. For those of you who have seen demos in the past, whether that was from Stoneridge, from me, or somebody else, just know that we've got access to the broader ecosystem. We've got all of our Office apps and Microsoft apps that we're licensed for in the very top left. But this field service app, I have access to a lot in the system here. We have customer service, project service, sales. We're living all of what we're doing today is right in this field service application. So my home screen is a dashboard, but on the left-hand side here, you're going to see I'm living in the service area. So we do have a sales area and inventory management, resources, settings, and training. I'm living in service right now. So when I talk about that case to work order, so this is really that scenario where when we're ingesting an issue, somebody needs something, there's a break fix occurrence, or somebody's requesting a service or a product, or something along those lines. This is where we have our case to work order process. Work orders are really the hub. Work orders are the backbone of everything that we're going to be doing in field service. But oftentimes we, further down on the left-hand side here on the sitemap, if I go to cases, this is where we have, there are a couple of requests here. The very top one, we have field equipment outage. So this is, something is maybe operating out in the field, or maybe a customer has some leased equipment or purchased equipment from us that's a part of their, their production line, and there was an outage. There's something down, it's critical. This is where we can start that process. So when we field that information, when we feel, hey, this is something that we need to spin up an on-site engagement for, just some information here. On the left-hand side, we've got general case details and some high-level information. Because this is a production issue, I'm actually going to set that priority to high because this is impacting our production line. So I'll set that to high and quick save it here. But here we have our general information of the case. Now, I'm not going to break down cases in Dynamics 365 today, at a very detailed level. Just know that, generally speaking, for field service, this is the main intake level, the main intake record type. So, we'll field those requests, and from here, you can see the visual process flow up top. We have our summary information. We have all of these relationships and SLA and contract information for our customer, and a lot of this is set by default right off the bat. And then we've got this visual process flow at the top. So we start by identifying the issue. We then move on to research, and this is really where the meat of the, hey, we need a work order process begins. So as a customer service representative for your organization, I can say, okay, you know what, we need to actually determine, or we need to kick up a work order from this level here. And right out of the box, we can actually go to convert to work order. So when we do that, it's going to take a lot of this default information, a lot of customer information. We can see recent cases and some contact info here, but it will port it over to the work order. So I can go convert to work order, click OK here. It'll take a second to think, and then we're going to get a new window when this is all said and done. Or or it'll prompt us, would you like to open this up in a new window? So when I do that, this is that work order from case. So to walk through the process so far, somebody called in, there's an issue, there's something on the production line down that's out in the field, that's our product they purchased or leased. Our customer service representative fielded that request or that issue, did some research, moved through the visual process, understood that we need to generate a work order and we need to start booking this for service. And when I create a work order from the case, you can see that a lot of data comes in automatically. So if I'm a dispatcher, or if I'm now, we're moving to getting this work order set and booking the resource, this is where we can go in and validate a few points. And we have that same visual flow at the top. So where we saw the case work stream visually represented a minute ago, this is where we can see the work order process visualized at the top of the record. So if I click into work order here, we, making sure we set our service and billing accounts, making sure that we have our incident type set. So this is replacing a broken part as our primary incident type. And we've got a number in here. We've got installation, power fluctuation, issues, standard inspections, but we're replacing a broken part. Priority, this is where we can set critical, low, normal, and this is all customizable. So we can customize this and tailor this to how your organization, speaks about or talks about or categorizes the priorities of your on-site engagements. We're going to say that this is critical. This also plays into color coding when we take a look at our visual schedule board, and then our work order type. So this is install or replace. It's a replacement. But what's nice is we've got this structured process in the system to be able to, inform us on the steps that we need to take as either a customer service rep or a dispatcher that, that we need to make sure that we're on top of as we go through this process. So I'll kick it down to the next stage. We need to schedule the work order. It says open, it's unscheduled, and I'm going to say that this is ready for dispatch. So we've got all these sub statuses that we can set in here as well. I'll save this quick. Couple of things to note, a lot of this came from the case itself. So we have the service account. So who is that customer that we're working with? A number of other data points that were in that process we just took a look at. Further down, we've got work hour templates. So if certain techs or certain teams operate on certain hours and schedules, we can open this up and configure this and customize this. Further down, we do have sales tax. We can put tax codes and territories into the system to be able to manage that. And then below that, here's our primary incident type. We can even, if customers have assets that we're tracking, we can even go in and designate the specific customer asset that we're working with here in the system. And then further down here are all of our, estimates and totals once we have this off the ground. But I'll save this quick. Further down, we've got this, and this is where we're talking about the work order anatomy. Here's the general information that we just spoke through, or kind of walked and talked through. But if I go to settings, this is where we can set. This really plays into the scheduling. So in the middle here, we have our preferences section, and we can see time from promised and time to promised. So this is where we're going to box in how we can schedule our service technicians or our field technicians. So let's say that we are promising from 11 a.m. today until, I don't know, maybe 3:30 p.m. That sounds like a decent window. These two are going to inform the system on when we can drag and we're going to see in the graphic scheduler in a minute when we can drag and drop these work orders. So this will come back up in a few minutes when we get to that piece. But just know that the promised windows, the from and to promised windows, play a big part in scheduling. We can tack on products if there are specific products we need that are actually transaction, they're purchased. We need to bring them for the job. We can designate those here. Services, this is where we are going to actually realize the discrete services being provided. Here we have service tasks. So these are the discrete tasks based on the incident type that a tech would need to perform, and we can standardize the estimated durations. Keep in mind this is all configurable. So if you don't have all of your if you're replacing a servo or you're doing some software upgrades or anything like that, if you don't have a tried and true standardized model for these tasks, that's fine. line. We can get a little bit more vague with them, but in this use case, we actually have things pretty well locked into how long these discrete tasks are going to take. And then further down, we've got our geo information. So where is this job, having an address for that, and then location. We actually have that visualized in the system. So it is plugging into a Bing Maps integration. If I hit geocode at the very top of this record here, this is where we can actually call a service and it provides us suggestions. We can, designate where this is going to be and the proper address from the service that we're using. Click OK. And once that's set, we'll then have it visualized. So that's available right on the record itself. And then we've got a lot of related information that's in here too. So that's the nuts and bolts of the work order itself, and all the pieces that play into it. Now, scheduled maintenance, had to check my notes here quick, but scheduled maintenance, this is really a use case or a scenario where somebody has an issue, they call in, they make the engagement, they spark that engagement. Oftentimes, we actually need to schedule service. So in the system, this is an instance of service here, but if I scroll down on the left-hand side, under service delivery, we also have these things called agreements, which is where we can set up scheduled maintenance. So if we know that certain products or certain equipment that we've leased out or that we've sold to our customers, if they need regular service, we can set that schedule. And again, we've got a visual flow for this. So we start by designating some of the, the summary information of that agreement, start dates, end dates, so the effectivity being set, what is the duration, system status, sub-status again. And then we go through a few more steps in the agreement booking setup and the agreement status overall. Now, the agreement booking setup, this is where we can actually designate that schedule. So, auto-generating these work orders. Instead of having a break-fix scenario, this is where we're going to auto-generate those booking engagements. So further down, we can see that, auto-generate the work order, yes, and then we can tell the system, it's got some smarts baked in, hey, how many days prior to this schedule would you like to auto-generate that work order? So we can play with some of the comfort zones or some of the lead times and lead ups. That this is where we need a little bit of knowledge on how available our text might be and when is that appropriate window to start building in some of these lead ups. But we can set that ourselves. This is configurable here. And then we've got some from and to windows, some general settings here, estimated durations. Is there a preferred resource and what is their preferred window? We've got a number of options here. But the message here, we can use agreements, as that like essentially a scheduled maintenance work contract to be able to set these schedules, and we have a lot of flexibility and configurability in when and how these auto work orders are generated and what sort of schedule they might adhere to along the way. So I'll go back to our work orders here, and actually to give you a quick preview of what we're going to be jumping into, I'll actually load up the schedule board here, but not in this window. We'll go back to the screen we were on a second ago, and we'll come back to this. But we're gonna start talking about resources and scheduling and how we get these jobs booked, how we get resources and text dispatched, monitoring, route optimization, general information and querying, etc. But this is what we'll jump into in a second here. Let's go back to our slide deck and kind of prime that conversation. So resources and scheduling. Just to give a brief overview on the resource structure itself, the person doing the job, the tech doing the job, there are some pieces that we want to build into that profile. So, the characteristics, the roles they can play on any job, some of the proficiency modeling and some of the skills that we can track and everything. We'll take a look at that real briefly. And then I want to go into the scheduling overview and booking those resources. So when we're on that schedule board that we just saw a second ago, how can we take those work orders? How can we take the list of jobs that we have to book? And what are some of those capabilities and those features that we can lean on to get that set and squared away? So let's go back into the system. And We'll go back to our scheduling board. So here we can see we've got, and when you first log in, when you first see this, you're really just going to see your resources up top. So who can actually execute this work? Who are those technicians, those field technicians or resources that we can book here? And we've got quite a list. So there are a number that are in the system, including myself here. But if I scroll over, we can see that we've got a work order booked right now. So this is very graphical. And excuse me one second. All right, so as these start accruing and as resources are being booked, this is where we can take our work orders that are down below, drag them up to the top, and the system has that intelligence baked into it to guide that process to either either not allow booking where some of those skills and proficiencies aren't allowing, or when we talked about the time to and the time from promised, time boxing those service windows, it'll do that for us. But the really cool thing here is when you break open this left tab, we have a filter. So if I'm looking for particular resources, so we have our characteristics. This is where I can go and search for texts that have certain proficiencies. Well, we also have our map view. So we'll break this down in a second when we're booking these and dragging the work orders up. But the backbone of this whole thing is, hey, who are the techs and what can they do? What jobs can they perform? And that really informs and drives how we can schedule this. So let's go take a look at our resources. On the left-hand side, I'm going to move from my schedule board. I'm living in the service area here, and I'm actually going to go into a different area to our resources. And when I do that, here's our list of all of our resources in the system. So I'm going to go up to I'm going to skip over myself. I'm going to go to Abraham at the very top here. So Abraham is a tech on our team, and obviously we have some general information. This is related to a full contact in the system. If I hover over that contact, we're going to get the full Office 365 adaptive card. So we have that information. We can see that contact information at a glance when we're in there. But further down under field service here, this is where we have some general settings. What is the hourly rate for that technician? Do they require approval for time off or not? So just the general pieces, which play into some billing and time entry, time off. But here we have our characteristics and category associations. What this really boils down to is proficiency, the characteristics at the top here, proficiency with various skills, and then the category associations are really the roles that they can play. So, and this is definitely going to be modeled after your organization. So this is the off-the-shelf or slightly configured Microsoft verbiage and terminology and how they classify some things for demonstration purposes. But do know that when our teams sit down, we elicit, hey, what are those roles that you have for your different between your field technicians, your internal back office teams. So we structure that out, and then we understand what are those skills and certifications and proficiencies that your organization cares about as well. But here you can see Abraham, accounting and finance, pretty good. Maybe that was a major in college and then moved into some field assembly. So, diagnostics and diagnosis, line design, budgeting. So we've got some skills here. So down below, here's where we have our association. So what are those roles that this person can play? And we can add on the fly here. So if we know for Abraham, we can, if we know that maybe there was a recent, training or boot camp or something that that they were a part of, this is where we can, in a quick create fashion right here, I'm not moving away, skill name, this is where we can have, pro certified, this is a lookup. Sorry, my go-to-meeting controls are getting in the way. But here we have a list in the system. We can build these in. So if he had some control systems proficiency, and we can set the rating here as very proficient, we can lock that in. And this plays into, and this builds into how we schedule and how the system allows you to schedule while we're getting those work orders booked. So, this is the skill sets and then the roles. If we wanted to add a new role to the docket here, we can go and say, you know what, Abraham, actually, we categorize him as a field service lead these days. So field service lead, and save and close that. So here are the various roles that Abraham can play while we're booking these jobs. Here are the proficiencies. And then we've got some additional settings like scheduling, where's their general start location and end location. I set his resource to, he's working, he gets dispatched from home, has a work truck there. So it's not from the organizational unit address, which is really the office, or maybe or like a warehouse or some sort of, you know, locked in location, rigid location, or location agnostic, can be anywhere, is a mix, kind of fluid. But for our purposes here, he's a resource address here, and we've got some, you know, display on the schedule board, yes. Enable for availability search, yes. So as we're filtering and querying and looking for the resources that can do the job, is he going to show up on the schedule board? And then we've got work hours, working off of, you know, the work order or the work hour templates that we have in the system. So there's a little bit of duplication here, but we actually do have a nice graphical breakdown in the calendar view of the work hours for this resource, and then a bunch of related information here that we're not going to get into today. But you know, this is the anatomy of the bookable resource. So what does that mean for scheduling? When I go back to bottom left, we'll go back to service and go back to that schedule board. We can actually see some of the data that we just walked and talked through at a resource level from the schedule board. So when we bring up our work orders that we need to book, when we bring up our map view, when we bring up our resource pool, we can see there's Abraham floating at the top. What's really cool and what I really appreciate is having that, we'll say a 10,000 foot view here, that, you know, that mid-level view right off the bat. But if I right click on any of these resources, we can view the resource card, and those proficiencies that we just talked through, you know, and we even added one, I believe it was the control system service, quite proficient. This is where we actually have those ratings and those breakdowns, which is really awesome. So as we hover over any of these data points, you know, marked as good for assembly line design, marked as very proficient with budgeting, we have that breakdown, and that's, you know, that's not unique to just Abraham. If I wanted to see my own stuff, I'm not very awesome. But you know, we can see that profile of that bookable resource, and then down below, hey, here are the roles that they can play. So you know, we don't have to navigate away to go back to that resource record to see all this information. We can see it right from the schedule board. You know, so those dispatchers, those people that need to execute the day-to-day and getting these jobs booked and off and you're going, you know, really we try to centralize all of that work effort, or as much as we possibly can, in one space, and usually that ends up being something like the, you know, the schedule board here. And we do have, you know, connection options here as well. So IM call and email. I'll duck out of here. But on the left-hand side here, we can see, I'll break down a few of these pieces. So these purple office icons, these are our offices. So this is, you know, your organization's office, and this is over in Seattle. Again, Microsoft stuff, demo data. But we've got a couple of home offices here, and then you can see color-coded. We have our bookable resources. So here's Efren, here's Abraham down a little further down south, and then here we have I think this is Edgar Dominguez. Yeah, so a couple of resources locally here, and then you can see that the red pins are the unbooked work orders. So these have yet to be booked for resources. So we have a hard booking for Abraham already, up actually kind of near one of our home offices as a coincidence. But you know, here we can actually see, well, how can we optimize this? You know, Abraham's already going way up to the north. We're going to actually maybe book that next one for him so he can hit this job first and then track a little further south, instead of having our two other resources jog all the way across town to Bellevue. And you know, and this is where we were talking about fleet costs. So, you know, fuel and time taken, we're going to actually build this into Abraham's schedule. So this is, what is this work order here? This is work order 04. So 04 is down on my list. We have a few views here to work with. So open jobs, unscheduled, and we can build custom views for you as well. So if we have custom scheduling or anything else that we need to build in and structure a view for you for easy agility, we can do that. But I'm going to take 04, and I think he's got that scheduled for midday. Perfect. So he'll be done. We'll give him a little bit of buffer time, and I can go and drag this 04 up maybe, and you can see as I drag it around, sometimes if it's falling outside of that time to promised or time from promised and time to promised, we're going to get a big old red X that kind of it barks at us and says, hey, you can't schedule that. But we have green across the board right now, so I'll schedule this and just plunk it in at maybe 3 o'clock. I think half an hour should be just fine for him to make it all the way up near that office and then down to that next job. So it's going to think for a second. It's going to hard book that resource, and you can see now on our schedule board, he's now going to track all up to that first job, and then after that's done, come down. And you can imagine as we keep scheduling these other resources, here we had, I think this was Edgar, right? So if we took this next job, just to optimize our routes here, if we took this next job, which is 03, and we went down to Edgar, we can see that Edgar Dominguez, 03, we'll book him at just after lunch. We'll drop that work order 0003 right here, and you can see that he's going to hit that job right after lunch. But this is where we can start to get into optimizing our resources in the field instead of having all this overlap and obviously the skills and what they can do and the different types and flavors of text, that plays a big part of this. But just having that visual representation, having your work order list, having all of your resources here, being able to filter, if I go to the filter tab on the left here, being able to filter by all of those proficiencies and skills and roles that they can play to find the right resources. Everything is at your fingertips here, and there is a fair amount of legwork in getting all of this established, working with a team like Stone Ridge to flesh this out and build this in. But once it's structured, it's intended to be very seamless. It's intended to be agile. It's intended to be have that high impact for any dispatchers working and any resources that are in play here. So this is one of my favorite tools, and just being able to see this visual person, it's been huge for the customers that we work with. Let's go back to our deck here quick. So getting into D365 field service, the mobile application, we can, this is work orders, scheduling, mobility, there we go. I want to talk through the mobile app and some of the capabilities there. Nothing too crazy, I will say that, but just a kind of an overview. And then we can, there we go. Talk about work order details and that impactful information that we talked about in the system. So this is where hopefully this is going to work out okay. We'll bring this out. We will bring an emulator or a mirror app up, and I will hook in on my own device here. We'll mirror that quickly. And I need to set my password. No. So we'll do that. And this is the field service. This is the field service mobile app. So here we have all of our, we've got our dashboards. So if I tap into dashboards and no data, here we have all of our contacts. We can see those additional bookable resources. If I went into Abraham's record, here we can, see who they're associated to, contact information, address information, notes. So the mobile app is quite snappy. We have, filtering on the fly per contact and per view. Now, if I go to the normal view of work orders, don't know that any are assigned to my bookable resource that I'm logged in with exclusively. But here's where we can, even as a field technician, if I needed to create a new work order, this is where I can start. I can actually enter that. So who's the service account? So we'll just go with I don't know, A-Datum works just fine. This is unscheduled, but say I'm on site and we actually need to track this. This is where we can say, once we have this saved, that it's actually in flight. It's being worked on. Here's where we can set the sub status. So ready for dispatch, what is the priority, critical. These are some of the data points that we've already talked through. But once I have this record saved and set the work order type, you can see that the required fields are going to be highlighted in red. We'll say that this is an install or replace, taxable no, parent work order, no relationships there. Billing stuff we can hit in a second. But once I click save here, now we have our work order saved, and this is actually going back into the system. So we'll see this work order generated within Dynamics 365 field service in the full application. But this mobile app is slick. It's snappy, and it's designed to give the text in the field what they need and when they need it. So you'll see we have all of our information, the high level info at the top. You can see it. We've got our command bar at the very top. So summary. We've got other information. If I tap that, it's going to snap us down the form. If we go to address, it's going to keep snapping us down the form. And these actually are collapsible sections. So if I tap any of these, we're going to have those kind of hug up to the one up top. And here we have what I really like is that the native Maps integration in the full application is a Bing Maps, but on my device here and with Field Service Mobile, it actually uses Google Maps. So this is somewhat more comfortable for me as an end user. But what's cool is right from here, I can go and get directions. You'll see in the top right with a little arrow icon. Down below we have incidents, service tasks, products, so this is where the system will flesh these out based on incident type for us. Notes, activities, bookings, and then here we have e-signature. So this is being able to sign off on work orders. This is going to be pretty game-changing for some organizations that are just jumping in. Being able to actually get customer signatures on site with ease from a snappy mobile application, it's awesome stuff. So I saved that and it hasn't been assigned to me, but seeing those work orders in action and being able to see all of my bookings and schedule and everything coming up is pretty awesome. So just to give you a flavor of the field service mobile application, one other thing to note here, it actually does have mobile offline capabilities. So it's if you have spotty reception or you might have a couple of outages here or there, you might need to go offline for whatever reason, we do have offline capabilities that will cache all of that data and then sync when we do have a signal again. The one thing I didn't hit in the mobile demo just now was time entry, but we can actually, in our service tasks, go to the task level and log those times against that work order. So time entry can be executed or is often executed from the mobile application, having those in hand with your techs. Now, in terms of advanced capabilities, just wanted to call out a few. I'm not going to walk through anything in the system right now, but the investment that Microsoft is making in field service technologies is huge, and some of those innovative features, those innovative capabilities that we're seeing that are pretty groundbreaking are, IoT integrations. So being able to integrate with any device that we have access to, that we can pull into the system and integrate into the system. We can monitor things like temperature thresholds or performance, just general performance metrics to see in real time if we need to address any above or below any scenarios. So if we have servos that are overheating, or if we have devices that are out there that are giving us some return data that's not ideal or not optimal, that's where we can actually be more proactive about our service models. So when I talk about proactivity in service, it's not just being able to effectively set up scheduled maintenance and those cycles and the patterns of service throughout a given calendar year. It's also taking things to the next level and plugging into these discrete devices, these assets that you have in the field, and seeing the return data in real time. And if anything is out of whack, we can actually configure and set certain thresholds. If anything is above or below a certain line in terms of performance, we can auto-generate asset alert or IoT alerts. We can auto-generate work orders from that. So, being able to proactively service your customers in the field, at an asset or device level is huge. So that really is the future. That really is, well, I shouldn't even say future, that's the now for Microsoft, is being able to use Azure capabilities and Dynamics 365 connected field service to monitor devices in the field and let our techs, let our teams know when things are are reaching critical thresholds or points. And customers, and the beauty of this is customers might not even know that there's an issue just yet, but if we have this information and this data in real time, we can get ahead of production downtime. We can get ahead of service downtime for our customers, so that the whole proactive service model is the name of the game. Two more pieces here. We do have geofencing. Obviously we saw the geocoding and mapping and plugging into the Bing and Google Maps APIs to be able to see where we're going and all of our mapping and everything. But we can take that to another level as well and set up particular geofences for accounts. And we can even roll that into time entry or cataloging time spent or time on site to be able to automate the process of entering specific zones and tabulating the entrance and exits from these zones against our time entry logs, which is pretty awesome. There is some configuration to that, and obviously we have to be mindful of how we service our customers and some patterns across our tech teams, but it's pretty cool to see that in action. And then advanced billing, we can set up invoicing schedules, we can set up, we saw like hourly rates and resource specific rates, but we have additional capabilities to be able to set, not just different billing accounts, but different billing types and things like that.